evening, dearest students, dearest viewers, dearest IELTS students, dearest students of English language. We are back once again on our channel, Alfonso the Rothschild Tutorials. Last time we had an analysis of an IELTS Task 1 graph. That graph dealt with an analysis of the proportion of 4 materials that went through the recycling process in a given country from the period 1982 to 2010. The report that we have on our board is based on that analysis. First of all, we need to start from the rudiments. How do you start the IELTS Task 1 report writing? First, you learn how to paraphrase the initial information given about the economic model that you are analyzing. In this case, the line graph. The question we are asked to solve is this. It says, summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. What this implies is that in writing a report, you are presenting a summarized version of the information contained in the economic model. A summary refers to a concise representation of a longer piece of original information. As we summarize, therefore, we are to select and report only the main features of the graph, but not everything. And then, where it is necessary, we compare the values, we compare the variables that are involved. Our first paragraph is a paraphrase of the information given as the caption of that graph. The information about the proportion of materials of 4 different natures recycled in a given country from the period 1982 to the period 2010. Our paraphrase says, the graph depicts the proportion of 4 different materials that were recycled in a particular country from 1982 to 2010. That is usually the first paragraph of the report. By the way, by convention, IELTS writings use the block paragraph method. There's nothing wrong with the indented paragraph. I mean, the IELTS candidate can still use the indented paragraph and will not be penalized. It is just a matter of convention that most, virtually all IELTS instructors use the block paragraph method of writing, and their students follow suit. After the first paragraph, which you can call the intro, the introduction, which is a paraphrase of the original information on the graph, what follows is the second paragraph, where you present your overview of the graph, of the economic model. The overview is what you can see on the economic model at a glance. It does not require quoting figures. What you need to do here is tell us which values are rising, which values are decreasing, which values are intermediate. It is what we've done here in the second paragraph. IELTS candidates have developed the tradition of referring to this second paragraph as the overall, because very often it begins or contains the word overall, because it's actually an overview of the entire model. It says, from an overall perspective, paper and cardboard, along with glass containers, were the most recycled materials at the beginning of the survey. Both, however, experienced a fall in their recycling rates as the study period approached an end. That is an overview. On the other hand, aluminium cans, though they entered the recycling process late in the survey, recorded a sustained increase that likely went beyond the survey period. So, the third paragraph here is a kind of comparison. The second paragraph talks about paper and cardboard, along with glass containers, which experienced early rise in their rates of recycling, but soon a fall followed. And then these are compared to aluminum cans, which entered the survey late, but began to experience a rise that is sustained and is likely to go beyond the end of the survey period. Now, apart from aluminum cans, there is another material called plastics. We've not mentioned plastic because it is understood that the rate of recycling for plastics came somewhere between these two major values, these two extreme values that we have discussed here. Remember that we are to mention or report only what is relevant. If a piece of information is already understood, going by what has been said about others, then we will be silent about that particular piece of information. Now, what do we do next? We will go into our fourth paragraph, which is likely to be the last. This report requires 4 or at most 5 paragraphs of roughly 150 words. As we can see, our viewers, our fourth and last paragraph discusses the detail of the movements of the variables, of the values contained on the graph. Some rising, some falling, some remaining stable, some not showing much sign of rising. At the outset of the survey period, the rate of recycling for paper and cardboard stood at roughly 65%, but this soon rose to 70%, while a further increase brought it to a peak of 80%, after which it dropped to 70%. Similarly, the recycling rate for glass containers started at 50% in 1982 and fluctuated, leveling at 60% between 2002 and 2006. Now, what we've done here is what is called grouping of data. Grouping of data. That means we have discussed together the values that had a similar movement on the graph. Both values have risen and had some signs of a fall. On their part, aluminium cans entered the recycling process at just above 1% in 1982, and by 2002 it had climbed to 50%, with the prospect of further rise beyond the end of the study period. We have not mentioned plastics here because it is obvious that whatever movement we see in plastics is an intermediate movement. It is somewhere between the other values that we have discussed, because plastics didn't experience enough rise in its rate of recycling that will warrant us adding it on the analysis without risking overflogging the analysis. So that is it today, my treasured viewers. May I end this video by asking you once more to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you can encourage us to give you more of this kind of videos. In our next video, we shall be analyzing statistical tables, still on our discussion of IELTS Writing Task 1, report writing. Thank you very much for being there for me, and see you in our next